Hi guys, welcome to our daily encounter. Today we read one of my favorite Psalms, Psalm 73. And this is a psalm by Asaph, who describes an experience that he had where at one point in his life, he had become very envious of the boastful, became very envious of those who were wicked, because it seemed like they were getting on pretty well in life. In the beginning of the psalm, he kind of describes what he saw when he looked at the wicked. He says they had peace. He says he saw the peace of the wicked. They didn't really have a lot of turmoil in their life. They just seemed to be living at peace. He said that there were no pains in their death. They weren't dying a painful death. They were just kind of just dying naturally, full of ease and peace. And then he goes on to say, their body is fat, so they were well fed. They had plenty to eat and to spare. He said they are not in trouble as other men, going back to this idea of having peace. And he goes on to say, and they are not stricken along with the rest of mankind. He says, therefore lofty pride is their necklace. The garment of violence covers them. Their eye bulges from fatness. The delusions of their heart overflow. And so he just says, as he's looking at, or as he looked at the wicked, the boastful, he saw them actually living pretty well and getting along pretty well in life. But then when he looked at his own life, he realized, his life didn't look anything like that. He was constantly dealing with trials and difficulties and hardships. And he almost stumbled when he thought about this. He's like, why am I living a righteous life if I'm getting all these hardships and the wicked are living the good life? He says he almost stumbled when he considered that. And as you read the psalm, you'll see a transition that takes place in the psalm. And eventually Asaph kind of comes to himself and he begins to realize, for one, that the wicked he came to realize, what the end of the wicked was, and that, it's not going to end well for them. Even though they might have it good now, in the end, they're going to pay for what they've done. But there was something else that he came to realize, and it's found in the verse that we want to focus on in the devotion today, in verse 28, where he says, but as for me, the nearness of God is my good. I have set the Lord Yahweh as my refuge, that I may recount all your works. And that's that phrase, but as for me, the nearness of God is my good. In other words, before he thought the good was what the wicked had. Living a peaceful life, having plenty to eat, experiencing a painless death, all these different things that we described before. He thought that was the good life. That's where the good stuff was. And he was missing out on the good stuff by living this righteous life. But he came to realize, no, my good is the nearness of God. And that's something that we need to realize as well. Because we live in a society that tells us that to live the good life, you need this list of things. You need to have, a good career. You got to have, money. You've got to have lots of cars in the driveway. You got to have a big house. You got to have this many children and all these different things. You got to be married, and there's a lot of things that that present themselves as a part of the good life, living the American dream, we might call it. When in reality, really, the good life is just being near to God, abiding in the nearness of the presence of God. That's where the good stuff is. Asaph had come to realize that even with hardship, even though living a righteous life was difficult for him, still the nearness of God outweighed the hardships that he was, experiencing. And so he said, that's my good, the nearness of God. And we need to realize that too. To say, you know what? The best thing that I can experience today is just the nearness of God. There's no greater gift or blessing that God can give us than his presence. And so what that means is that better than eating fancy food or living in lavish houses or just diving into entertainment and inundating ourselves with all type of stimulation and things like that. Better than all that stuff is just sitting in the presence of God. And sitting outside, feeling the breeze against our skin, watching the birds in flight, watching the leaves toss to and fro, watching the grass move around in the wind, and sensing God's presence. That's where the good stuff is. It's when we go into perhaps other situations, maybe even difficult situations, and we experience the nearness of God through his comfort, through his strength, through his working in the situation and answering our prayers. That's where the good stuff is. It's when we know from the depths of our heart that God is with us, and we can sense that, and we realize that, and are conscious of that throughout the day. That's the good life. And so I would encourage us all to seek the true good life, and that is just to abide in the presence of God. Keep God's presence ever before us, being conscious of it, being aware of it, and always abiding in it. And that way, everywhere we go, we'll be tasting the goodness of the Lord that far outweighs anything else that this world can offer. So these are things we can reflect on and think about as we do our reading today. With that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.